Good evening and welcome to Anime-Zing Radio. Tonight we have no Doug, so I'm your host, Angela Rose, and I am joined by Mr. Darren Starling.
Hello, people. Please bear with us for the next 2 hours. We're trying our best here.
And, well, if anything, if any of you have been paying attention to the news out of Anime Expo, that alone might keep us on some semblance of a topic for the entire 2 hours. Because, good Lord, there's a lot. Starting with the first thing is Panty and Stocking new season slated for 2025. I didn't actually watch the original, so I don't know.
Ditto here. I've seen numerous clips from it. I've heard multiple people talk about it. I've heard many clips out of panels regarding it. I know that, let's see, who was it? Monica Rial had a heavy part in that, and so did Jamie Markey. And I know that Monica has talked about it the couple times she's been on. I know Doug had a special request. Was it? I think it was her for doing a voiceover in a different character's voice,
That sounds
or
on
was that?
point.
But yeah,
But no,
um,
and
that
my
that that promises to be a very wild ride if it's anything like the original.
and on my social media feeds, it's got a lot of hype already. So we'll see. And shout outs hello to Ross, Nunya Business, and Sharka. Uh, Ross, we're starting with the news out of Anime Expo. Panty and Stocking was one of the first announcements. Next up, Beyblade is getting an anime to premiere on Disney Plus next week, July 13th. Not sure how that's going to be. That one kind of, I didn't even know that was even being made until earlier today. So I wonder if that's going to fall under like be a very similar thing to like Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or anything of the like.
Who knows? I just kind of hate that it's kind of hidden behind Disney Plus. A lot of the shows that we grew up with just seem to be hidden behind paywalls at this point.
Ross, for getting there. That's gonna come. That's gonna come later.
Yep, because she is itching to dive into it. Believe me.
Yep. And then going down this list, Suicide Squad. I don't know if anyone's watching the Suicide Squad Isekai, but some new trailers were dropped highlighting the villains. Not my jam.
Nor is it mine, but come on, who doesn't know at least some of the villains in that universe? I mean, come on, they're more or less a household name at this point if you think about it.
Agreed. But moving right along, another one that I didn't realize was in progress. Trigun Stampede getting new content. Final Phase Anime it's Trigun Stampede quote Final Phase reveals that its title is Trigun Stargaze. Now, I watched Trigun Stampede. I really enjoyed it. I hope that this continuation is done well and doesn't wind up being a hot mess. And I highly recommend Darren. I highly recommend you actually check out Trigun. But hey,
Well, it's on the classic list along with about 100 other shows. So eventually.
Yep. Um, another anime that I've never heard of is got announced as premiering next 2025. Witch Hat at Atelier. Atelier.
Hmm.
I do not know anything about this. But a promo video official teaser was dropped, and the staff was announced. So it looks like a lot of big stuff coming up. Da, 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 da. I didn't. Did you know G Kids was still around?
I don't even know what that is.
Uh, G Kids is licensing Garden of Remembrance. It's a short film, but looks pretty. And then a new Idol Master film being put out by Cloverworks at some point in 2025. And then the
And
next
I have to say, and Cloverworks has a reputation for very good quality shows. So
Cloverworks has not done me wrong yet. And then the next big one, um, which for any other Ruby fans out there, Viz Media acquires Ruby, and they're going to explore the production of new chapters, and this is huge. Because when Rooster Teeth shut down earlier this year, that was one of the biggest question marks was what was going to happen to Ruby. And so that's been all over social media and the various on the various cast and crew social media pages on top of fandom. Did you actually watch any of Ruby at all?
nope,
It's a lot of fun.
it's yet once again on the list.
Uh, if you go to YouTube and look up the yellow trailer, you'll see why Yang is kind of my character.
I can tell without actually watching it. I at
Uh,
least know the characters.
Fair, but the story goes we watched the yellow trailer together, husband and I, and that became the one I cosplayed. But more news coming from Eri Fuerta season 3 anime.
I am
The
very hyped for that.
October premiere date.
Finally, we get to see more Hajime, Yue, and the rest of the gang go around and try to uncover the mysteries of the world that they are in.
But they announced a October premiere as well as revealed opening theme artist. Da-da-da. The new theme song is going to be a song called Unending Wish by Void Chords featuring Mindarin. And there's a video on YouTube, which I'm obviously not going to play because copyright nonsense. Also coming up is more Blue Exorcist. I don't know if you watched that at all.
I've seen a few episodes because of my friend back in high school. That was one of the few anime that he showed me that I did not continue on my own. Pretty much every other one he showed me, I continued. Even Detective Conan, which I got about 80 episodes into before I dropped.
Fair enough. I know of it, never seen it. but there's a new trailer, and it looks like it's going to be a half-year run. Blue Exorcist also getting a smartphone game for an English release. Um, also, season 2, finally, season 2 for Seven Deadly Sins was announced.
About to say Seven Deadly Sins in what regard? Oh, the Four Nights of the Apocalypse. Okay, that's the new series because the Seven Deadly Sins has had at least 3 seasons.
Fair. Not one I've actually watched.
I
Um,
watched I watched the original, and the new one follows Meliodas' son, and not so much the original cast.
um, Solo Leveling Season 2 trailer was released. Solo Leveling Season 2 Arise from the Shadow. And fun thing I learned about Solo Leveling. That one actually not originally Japanese.
Yep, it is a Korean manhwa,
Yes. I was
just
surprised
like
to I was surprised to learn that.
just like Tower of God.
Yep. But it's all becoming so mainstream that it's very, very interesting. Uh, more game, more game stuff.
There is a new anime coming out from. Let's see. Oh, this one seems like it would be up your alley.
Which one?
Uh, Ubel Block, dark fantasy. Um,
Ooh,
the
and that's winter 2025.
mm-hmm, trailer looks pretty interesting, and
I
I like the visual.
Oh, that looks gorgeous. But yeah, no, I haven't. This one, I love a good I love a good fantasy, but like a really standout fantasy we don't see that's not also an isekai. We don't see many of those.
Yep. E- Ever since Banished from the Heroes Party came out, there seems to be a surge in adventure type series um, taking place in a fantasy land.
And most of them are good adventures, but not all of them nail the fantasy.
Yep. Which
Um,
reminds me, I still have to watch Friedland.
I'll get there eventually. Um,
Really quickly, I'm gonna respond to Ross's comment. I already did, sir.
I figured we'd get there. Um, let's see. New video game content for Bleach and Dragon Ball. That's to be expected. Uh, One Piece English dub for the Egghead arc debuts. Interesting that it's debuting on the Microsoft Store first. Uh, August 27th for Microsoft and September 17th for Crunchyroll. Maybe someday I'll watch all of One Piece. Maybe I won't, and I'll just stick with the live action.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's not only gonna take, let's see, 72 episodes a day if you were to watch 24 hours, right? No, 24 hours in a day, 20 minutes. So yeah, no, that's 72 episodes, give or take. So if you could manage 60 episodes a day, it would take you about 2 straight weeks to catch
Yeah,
up to where we are.
yeah, no.
So who has
Um,
that much time?
yeah, exactly. Time, and then it looks like the rest is There's a blue box anime coming at some point. Trailer was dropped. I have not heard of that. Um, the English cast for Uzumaki was revealed. More Black but Yeah, I can talk. More Black Butler Emerald Witch Arc premiering in 2025. Uh, you guys are going to give me a hard time for this one. My Hero Academia film screening in the US on October 11th.
You going to see it in theaters?
I almost assure if we can time it, if we have the time to do so before we leave the country, yes. Because we've seen them all in theaters. However, I will say, for me personally, I prefer the subcast to the dub, but I think that's just because I watched most of the I watched the series dubbed, and then watched the series subtitled, and then seeing the movie dubbed. It was just really different and weird.
Thank you.
Um, Hi, John Knight. Good to see you. And then Ross has a question for you. I keep looking for what word revamp means, but what exactly is Demon Lord retry, a sequel or a remake?
That is a great question. I haven't really looked into it. It looks like it is a sequel. Yep, it is. Crunchyroll announced in Japan that it will stream the anime adaptation of the sequel manga, Demon Lord Retry R. So it is a sequel.
Um, is it so? There's going to be more. Is it wrong to pick up girls in a dungeon? Season
With season 5,
season 5 reveals key visual.
I believe I need to catch up on season. I can't remember if I watched season 3 or not. But basically, you took a really lighthearted, somewhat lighthearted comedy adventure, and it's gotten really serious in the past couple seasons.
But a whole lot of Crunchyroll announcements. Crunchyroll will be streaming at some indeterminate point new Doctor Stone, science fiction future, uh, a new show, Anyway, I'm Falling in Love with You.
Sounds
Blue.
like my kind of show.
Yeah, I was about to say that sounds like a Darren show. Blue Lock season 2, which I meant to watch season 1 and didn't get around to it. Um, a show called Delico's Nursery. Uh, the
More
seventh.
fire, more
Uh,
Fire Force.
I'm not sure if this is Crunchyroll, but Fire Force third and final season will debut. Uh, part 1 will debut April 2025, with part 2 January 2026.
That's quite the
Uh,
gap.
yeah, that's oh yeah, actually. Uh, Seventh season of Natsume's Book of Friends. I've never heard of this show.
Let's see, more Yakuza Fiance,
Yakov,
Reiwa Taninga Lee.
I'm cu- I am curious.
I think I know what that one is, but give me a second.
Um, Omniscient Reader gets TV anime. And Crunchyroll's going to have Apothecary Diary season 2. That I am super excited for, as Ross predicted, because that was one of my all. That one is probably up there on my all-time top 5. Um, Demon Lord Retry R anime reveals October debut.
More Thousand Year Blood War.
Bleach Thousand Year Blood War Part 3, The Conflict, October premieres in October. Under Night in Birth 2, Sicil
the less fighting game Uzuki
More
reveal.
fighting games.
Yep.
Hunter Hunter gets a fighting game.
Anime Expo Cinema Nights reveals 24-2025 slate with plans to screen Ninja Scroll, Metropolis, and more. Actually, I'm gonna open that one up and see what we got. Okay, so it's gonna be so it's a partnership to be screening anime films in over 500 locations in the U.S. and theater, and the event will screen Ninja Scroll for the 30th anniversary. Wow.
Ninja Scroll, Metropolis, Paprika restored in 4K, and Cowboy Bebop the movie. The event.
Maybe that
Ooh,
would be an excuse for me to go actually see something of Cowboy Bebop.
I don't remember if I enjoyed the movie or not. I actually don't remember if I watched the movie, now that I think about it. The event will also screen Baby Metal Legend 43, the movie.
And Ross, I only mentioned Fire Force because it was up there. I lost interest after season one. Like, sorry, Soul Eater grabbed me more than Fire Force did.
Hello, Mario. Um, from the chat, the series courtesy of John Knight, the series finale for the Duke of Death and his maid is being delayed for a week. And 2 days ago marked the 5th anniversary of the Fire Force anime. It aired on streaming services, both dub and sub. And I think that's up. And then last but certainly not, some more video game stuff. Last but not least, Special Kid Factory got announced and its first trailer was unveiled. I know absolutely nothing about this. But all in all, lots of anime news, lots of new stuff to put on the radar, and a lot for us to actually talk about.
Yep.
And Ross says he only mentions this because they stated that they are trying to finish the anime for the manga source.
Well, I have to say, definitely an interesting tie into the Soul Eater universe, but it just wasn't. It was good, but it wasn't enough to keep me invested.
But yeah, lots of stuff, lots of things to look forward to. Um, and I, for one, I have not started watching any summer stuff at all.
Meanwhile, on the rare case, I have.
Yeah, you're ahead of us. Let's see how long that lasts.
I would say my watch list is comprised of most of Ross's, with no Ross influence on any of it. Well, I take that back. The Elf one I was gonna skip, but when I saw it was only 11 minutes, I'm like, screw it, I'll watch it.
Whereas I think my short watch list, I think there's only one that also matches yours, possibly two.
Potentially. And no, Ross, I really wasn't a fan of any of the girls.
And John in the chat says he's watching Rent a Girlfriend and he's on episode 17 and actually enjoying it.
I never made it past episode one. which
That
is ironic considering I watch some of the other girlfriend
I say that
shows
sounds like
like
something you and Doug would watch.
well, Doug watched season one. I don't think he continued into season two though, which is weird because I watched both seasons of Girlfriend, but I didn't watch Rent a Girlfriend. That's weird.
Fair. One, two, three, four.
And John Knight has been left speechless.
uh, I
I
don't
tried my
know.
best.
I don't know what surprises them more. You actually not watching something of the like, or uh, me actually watching and enjoying romance.
Well, I will encourage you to watch Alia Hides Her Feelings in Russian. It,
I'll give that a maybe.
if I had to compare it, it's about like Dangers in My Heart, but we're back to high schoolers instead of middle schoolers. Even though they really didn't act like middle schoolers in Dangers in My Heart, to be fair. But then again, neither did Takagi, and that was also middle school.
No, the one you've got to go back and watch is Voice Actor Radio.
Yeah, you're right. And you know, Ross, I'm watching it too. I like all. I will watch any of those types of shows because they just write them so much better, and I don't know why.
And I think it's fair to say that out of the three of us, I'm probably the pickiest when it comes to media as a whole.
I would say so because my two determining factors for a show is Shonen Ai and oh, I take that back. Shonen Ai is my big thing, and also even though I watch it, I'm not an idol person.
Like I just if there's for me the big deal breaker is the story and the characters. If the story or the character development does not grab me, I'm done after 2 to 3 episodes, if not less. But I know for a lot of people usually it's art that's the big like art is the one of the deal breakers.
Yeah, well, I'll say this: there is a show this season that's predominantly CGI. That or was that last season that people? I think it was last season that people had mixed feelings about.
I could see that. Um uh, and I'm not sure what Ross is agreeing with me, but I'm not sure what he's agreeing with me about because I say a lot of
You said
things.
about to say you said a mouthful there.
Exactly, I say a lot. But I suppose now I'll pose a question to the chat. Uh, oh, storyline and characters.
Very true.
I'll
Mm.
pose the question. For things upcoming or things that are just now dropping, what's everyone most excited for?
Quitting time and payday. I have a customer that every time he comes in, I'm like, "How you doing?" He's like, "Waiting on quitting time and payday." He's long since retired.
Ah, and John in the chat says he's most excited for Fairy Tail 100-Year Quest anime dub. Uh, anything.
Summer,
Ross,
summer predominantly Ross.
or if there's something that like is if there's something coming out in the fall or the winter that's got you more excited than everything for the summer, by all means feel free to share. Because I'm gonna be honest,
You
the
did, you did not plan this far ahead.
well, no, Gun Gale, which is dropping in the fall, actually is higher up on my excited list than the summer stuff. Now I might be proven wrong, but
Well, for fall, my definite hype is going to Arifuerta.
and Ross says plus sized elf that aired yesterday because he's a fan of the manga. Yeah, see, I wish manga was more available from like the library side of things because I want to read more manga, but I can't read on a screen. I can't read too much on a screen without getting massive headaches.
I was about to say, because there's manga literally everywhere if you know where to find it.
Contacts and reading on a computer screen equals bad news bears for me.
Ross, question for you. Are you watching My Wife Has No Emotion? And if so, please say so. Because I can't be the only one watching yet another show like that and questioning myself.
Uh, don't we question ourselves like every season for something that we've watched?
That's fair. Wow, I'm starting to talk like Angela.
And then John also says he's excited for Shy Anime Season 2.
Excuse me.
But yeah, I suppose tomorrow morning one of my projects will be to go through Crunchyroll and see what on our watch list is ready and on Crunchy to actually get added to the Crunchyroll watch list. Yeah, I don't.
Excuse me.
Ross answered your question.
As a mature person, when I say I agree with the storyline and Angela earlier, I meant it. It's a no. Also, you can't have a relationship without emotion. I agree. But to be fair, Ross, on that note, did you check out Beatless or Plastic Memories at least? And that's the reason I ask because similar premises and Plastic Memories actually did make me cry.
John Knight says for fall, he's excited for Sword Art Online Gun Gale Season 2 and Shangri La Frontier Season 2.
Okay, Ross, because similar concept here, not taking it quite as far, but that's part of the reason I asked. Beatless would be a more reasonable comparison, but at the same time they were like super advanced in comparison to this.
I don't know. There's various anime have made me cry over the years.
That's the one thing I love about a good romance anime. You can't. Okay, you're confusing me, sir. Make up your mind. Do you cry or not?
Excuse me. But then again, there have been anime that have made me cry, but then again, I'm a very emotional person and sometimes the dumbest things will just make me cry.
Did Yoshiko make you cry over bananas?
Yoshiko?
Aho girl.
No. I cringed at the stupidity of it, I think was the biggest thing.
That's why I was asking. Did you cry because of how cringe it was? Because you were so embarrassed.
No. What is.
Yeah. Ross, there's got to be at least one anime that made you cry. Or are you talking about in retrospect? Anime regarding things with no emotion.
Uh, and John Knight says, speaking of that, the only anime I've ever cried is Assassination Classroom.
Deserved. Well deserved.
Never actually saw that one.
It's well deserved. That's all I gotta say. It was worth all 50 episodes.
Yeah, no, at one point I would have said 50 was a lot.
You know, that was back when animes had didn't hesitate to do multiple cores all at once. But then again, animation studios didn't have as many projects working at the same time.
And it was either a 12, it was either like 12 or 24 standalones or like your Bleach One Piece style never ending show.
Speaking of One Piece, the website I'm on right now, the most recent episode was episode 1111.
And that's ridiculous. But I can't, and One Piece is one that at one point someone tried to convince me to watch it. Almost did, except I couldn't find it. And that's when it would have been reasonable.
My friend that got me into anime tried to get me to watch it because he was saying it's the goat, it's the da 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 da. Now, mind you, this was back in 2013. I just never got into it because those were the shows that were appearing on Netflix at the time, which him and his parents had.
Mm-hmm.
So, and with me being his ride, we would watch various things after school, and he would show me a couple of the ones that he thoroughly enjoyed.
Yep, my friend did that to me, but again, that was more the days of her importing stuff, the stuff that she liked from Suncoast,
Well, by the
because
way,
we're talking like 1997.
and that's the other thing, Ange. Did you read the thing I sent in the group chat about that manga? Because I have a feeling if it gets adapted into an anime, you two would be the prime. You and Doug would be the prime examples of that.
What which one? The first manga cafe?
Mm, no, look in the group chat.
Yeah, I am. Which
Yeah,
one are you?
yeah, the first
Well,
manga cafe. If you actually watch the video, my lovesick life as a 90s otaku follows a 42-year-old divorced mom who loves otaku culture and grew up in the 90s. And it's all about what otaku culture was like in the 90s.
I feel like that's my. I feel like I feel like that's my life.
Well, when you get a minute, watch the actual video, and it's a manga about a mom that is an otaku in her 40s, and she has a daughter who is also into anime and manga, and it looks like it's comparing the lives between the two of how the culture has changed and what it was like for her growing up versus how it is for her daughter.
Yep. Yeah, so I may very well have to check that out because that's me.
And
Yep. Cause I yeah, cause growing up in the 90s, anime was very much not a popular thing.
well, to be fair, I wonder if we can get away with playing the clip that I sent for the Dodgers game because that was just insane.
Agreed. So and that's actually another reason that's a reasonably new thing with the all of the pop culture uh things at sporting events.
So, for those of you that don't know what we're talking about, the Dodgers actually had a little visit by a certain VTuber who performed "Take Me Out to the Ball Game." A VTuber in a baseball game,
The Dodgers did a Hollow Live night, and I
and Guargura was the lucky VTuber.
there were a couple of others who made appearances,
True, but
but
Gura
you
is one of the bigger.
agreed. But that was it. From a technical standpoint, it was beautiful. As maybe this is an I'm too old thing, but I just, for me, the whole thing was a little on the absurd side. And but now we're getting back into the chat being the chat. 2 days ago marked the 10th anniversary of Tokyo Ghoul, says John Knight. And Ross, Disney news, all of the original cast are coming back for a sequel of Freaky Friday. Uh, I did see that, and that'll be interesting. Because I'm not sure that's a movie that needed a sequel. But yeah, the Dodgers And from John Knight, how was everyone's 4th of July?
Very
Eh,
uneventful.
yes, same. I did absolutely nothing, and it was glorious.
And here's the funny part. I didn't get out of bed till 3 o'clock. And by that point, I decided to forego any work and literally did nothing all day.
I was up at 5 a.m. because husband had to go to work. However, and I didn't bother going back to bed, but I basically sat in my chair and did nothing all day, and it was glorious because it was way too hot and way too humid.
You see, and that's the funny part. It was way too hot and humid for me too, but the following day, when I did 13 properties, was when it was even hotter.
Friday, it rained here. Part of my adventure on Friday was going to the Museum of Fine Arts here in Boston, and they had a special temporary exhibit all about the rise of Korean pop culture, art, and fashion. And some of the things brought up was how Korean web comics and manga have are very popular right now.
Yep. And to be fair, China's catching up as well. It's not just Korea.
True, and it's just interesting because with we call all of the Eastern animation, we refer to anything out of the East anime, but yet anything from here is cartoon is almost exclusively cartoons.
Cartoon, cartoon.
I think Ruby and a couple of other shows are like the exception.
Code Lyoko. I had a lot of my friends that were weebs talk about that one. And the Jeopardy music starts playing to fill the void of no talking.
uh, and Ross says, I saw a news today. Sicily is in Italy is running out of water. There is so much in terms of world news I could talk about because I
But
actually try to keep up on that. But because almost everything these days is political, I'm just gonna not. Um, Circling back, Ross, are you a Disney fan? I thought we had at least one or two Disney fans in the chat. Uh,
I am a Disney fan to a limited extent. I
uh,
will. I I have no interest in going to Disneyland or Disney World. Now, the one in Tokyo or the one in Japan, maybe, but I have zero interest in going to either theme park in the U.S.
Valid. Um, the Pixar film Inside Out 2 broke a bunch of box office records over the holiday weekend. Which is funny because Inside Out 1 was kind of just like was not very noteworthy at all in by
You know,
comparison.
it's funny. You a lot of these shows that are a lot of these movies that get sequels. Some of them are like sleepers, and by the time season two comes around, enough people actually have gone back and taken the time to watch the show to realize what they missed out on, and in return become excited for more content. Just like with anime, how many people sleep on really good shows that have a first season and they go, "Oh, why did this get a second season?" Then they actually go back and watch it and they're like, "Oh, now I get it. Now I'm hyped."
Yep. And while you both love to give me a hard time for the amount of overrated shows I enjoy, I've also watched a lot of underrated shows that I go, "Oh wait, why is almost nobody watching this? This show is fantastic."
Yep, I have a couple of those almost every season, just not recently. One that made the list you sent was Dorohedoro.
That's right.
Not a whole lot of people know about that show. It was a super trippy anime, but it was unique and it was actually interesting. And there is more coming out.
So, to give the chat some context, I found a list of the top, I believe it was 15 uh, anime released in the past 5 years, and I scrolled through it, and I was very surprised with some of the titles. I was very not surprised by some, and very surprised by others.
Or lack of others.
Pretty much. And then there were some that I was like, "Why isn't this on the list?" Oh yeah, because it was originally released far longer ago. Now I've got to go back and find that list because I sent that. I don't remember how many days ago.
Like four. And plus I've been bombarding the chat with interesting stuff, so
Yep. Uh, Interesting stuff such as the McDonald's Jujutsu Kaisen collab.
yep. Because they did something with Rick and Morty. Now it's Jujutsu Kaisen's turn.
There we go. But yeah, according to this website called Collider, the top 15 anime in the past 5 years: Promised Neverland, which I had heard good things about but never seen.
Season 2 was trash. Even
Doctor
as an anime only watcher, I can say it was not good.
14, Doctor Stone, which again I've heard good things about.
Well respected series. I think it deserved a place on this list.
13, which is one I expected to actually be a little higher on the list. Uh, Spy Family.
I would have preferred it higher as well, considering what we got.
12, Ranking of Kings, which again I've heard good things about but never seen.
Same.
Number 11 was the reboot of Fruits Basket.
That was well deserved from my understanding.
Same, I've heard nothing but good things, but I never got around to watching it. 10, which again I would have expected. I'm actually on the one hand, I'm surprised it even made the list because this is one that I felt was very underrated. Uh, but also would have liked it to be a little higher is 86.
And one I had been that has been on my watch list for a while now.
Uh, I have raved about that at great length. Number 9, Duro Hetero. I never actually watched it.
Like I said, very unique, trippy, and it was. I'm trying to remember why the heck I even watched it because it is definitely one of those ones that I would normally skip over.
I was gonna
But
say,
it,
based on this description, it sounds like a me show. Why did I not watch it?
no, you would love it. I will tell you this right now, you would love
Uh, Number 8, Odd Taxi, which I know very little about, haven't heard much about.
it. Didn't Doug watch that one,
Maybe?
or am I thinking of Giga? Because I know Giga went on a rant about it.
I don't know. Number 7, one that you've been trying to get me to watch for at least a year,
Vinland Saga.
Vinland Saga.
No, that honestly, I think that should have been higher up in the list because it, it's storytelling at its finest
I've heard nothing but
and,
good
and character development at its finest. Going from one extreme to another extreme to another extreme. I mean, you
my
go
boy.
from a kid, an innocent kid, to a warmonger to back to a shell of his former self who has to step back out in order to survive. It's a whole roller coaster.
Uh, it's on my list. We'll get there. Um, Number 6, Lookism, which is a based on a Korean webtoon. Uh,
Never heard of it.
Never heard of it, and looks like it is an isekai of sorts and a K drama of sorts.
Not to say, it looks like it's. Is it an isekai or is it a body swap?
Uh, okay. Uh, One day after spending a day in a new town, he wakes up in the middle of the night in a completely different body.
Okay, in a new town, but and it doesn't specify if it's the same world or not because it's only isekai if it takes place in a world that's different than what he's
Fair,
currently in.
fair enough. Basically, second chance to make something of himself. Number 5, I will actually agree with this one and be surprised that it made it this high. Cyberpunk Edge Runners, which I absolutely loved. I would recommend this to I would recommend this to most people. So well done. Number 4, another one. I don't know if remember if
I
you
never
watched
got around. I never got around to it. It was on the list though.
number 4, another one I really loved, Wonder Egg Priority. So good. So well done. So dark. I
And
love.
then the top three, we start getting into the should have seen this coming.
Yeah. At number 3, I would argue I would argue extremely overrated. I've heard nothing but good things, but I think this one is an example of the fandom has made it so I have
Don't want
zero
to watch it.
interest. Jujutsu Kaisen, should have seen this coming. Number 2, and I've actually watched the first few episodes and actually enjoyed it, but I will agree overrated, Demon Slayer. And number 1 actually surprised me, and I would argue this doesn't deserve to be number 1, even though I really enjoyed it.
I would agree. I would agree as well. I don't think it deserves the number one spot either.
Chainsaw Man. Don't get me wrong, I loved Chainsaw Man. It was really well done. but I don't know if I would agree it's the best. If you can handle the gore aspects of it, I actually do recommend it. Uh,
Agreed. If you can handle the darkness behind the intent of certain characters.
yeah, but uh, Darren, to answer your question about, or to answer Ross says to answer the question, he agrees with you on Era Fuerza. But in terms of new stuff, he's looking forward to Nina the Starry Bride. And
Um, that
Ross
sounds
actually
like something
watched
I've watched.
Ross actually watched Odd Taxi.
Okay, it's one. It's one of those weird shows that it's to my understanding, it's one of those shows that's super relatable. It's like anytime you get a mundane job where you're constantly different, dealing with different clientele all the time, there's no telling what you're gonna hear. Like when I was in college, because yes, I did attempt college. My economics professor would do Uber when he was bored. I mean, he was in his 70s. So when he wasn't teaching, or and he had handed off the business he built to his kids or grandkids, I forget which, he would go and Uber. And some of the stories he told us from the Uber he did was crazy. Because, mind you, this was back in 2015, 2016 when Uber was still fairly new. And it was a interesting topic.
Yeah, no, I've got some store. During a period when I was unemployed and temping, I did Uber for a little while just to have a source of income. I too have some very interesting stories. But but yeah. Um yeah, very interesting list. I agree with some, don't agree with all of it. And honestly, I'm not sure. Was it Darren? Was it you or Doug who watched Chained Soldier? If so,
That was me.
do you know there's going to be a season two done
Hmm.
by Passion
Passione.
Passione?
Yes, I do. That was what season one was done by.
Gotcha.
A lot of people are mad that a low tier bottom feeder etchy show is getting a second season in the first place. But to be fair, we have not had a good etchy show in years. Let us have this.
My argument would be not. I don't really like etchy, so but if you're gonna do a season two of something, why not make it why not make it a top tier one instead of a bottom feeder one?
And that's my beef too. There's a lot of shows that get second seasons that we feel don't deserve it, but yet again, we don't have a say in this. It is the Japanese audience that ultimately has the final say as to what gets more content.
Um,
It's only recently that Japan even considered listening to the rest of the world.
that was gonna be my argument. Was it's becoming less about just the Japanese audience, and you look at the overall numbers, like, and there are some shows where season one happens and it's very much a standalone story, and You'd love to see a season 2, but at the end of the day, sometimes you really don't want to because then it won't be as good because they finished the story. And then we see all of this mediocre stuff. Like, I've never seen this, so I'm sure someone's going to be annoyed with me for this one, but for this example, but like stuff like Love Live gets how many seasons and how many spin-offs and how many seasons of the various spin-offs when I'm
Mm,
sure
and
when
Idol Master as well, because I think it was getting new content as well announced at Anime Expo.
yes, and when Doug would argue that Shine Post was a much better idol anime than either of those.
Hmm. Well, unfortunately, the way that some of these series go, whatever makes the most money is what they're going to try to milk as much out of as they can. I mean, look at the Fate series.
Yep. And then Ross has an example. Gauken Babysitters was a great anime, but never got its second season.
I heard about that one.
But it all
I've seen clips, but I've never watched it.
but that just all it all comes back to it ultimately all comes back to money, and I'm convinced half the reason, well, shows like Jujutsu Kaisen and Demon Slayer and My Hero Academia and all of those, they're stupidly popular, and they also make a lot of money in the merchandising department.
Yeah. Demon Slayer, I would say, is becoming a bigger trend that I've seen. I've seen more stickers on people's car of Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen than I have of My Hero lately. My Hero, I think peaked a while back and is on the downward trend.
which I would which honestly is sad, largely because I feel like there were a couple of seasons that weren't as good, but like then you go back to then it picked right back up again, and I would argue the villain arc and the current vigilante arc are arguably better than than the couple of seasons before.
And like I said, I would watch it if it was just the villains because they have way more personality and way more character and just more interesting interactions, to be honest with you.
And
I would
this
almost like to see I would almost like to see the story done from their side entirely.
I highly recommend you go back and watch that season because there are episodes where they actually do that, where entire episodes are told from one specific villain's point of view. But I never argued when Doug said it was overrated. Um, and Ross says, I'm not sure, but taking a guess, and you haven't, Darwin's Game needs a second season.
I think that's the one I watched.
I
No, it was the one I watched.
I
Then yes, I can agree to that.
I did not watch it. I heard about it, and at one point it was on my watch list.
I still recommend you watch The Future Diary before you watch that one though, because that's like the original. And remind me, have you seen Danganronpa?
No, I've seen clips, and from everything friends have told me, it sounds like it's really well done, but not for me.
Okay. I personally haven't seen the series, but I know how famous it is, and I know it's kind of up your alley. I didn't know if it would be one that you would have watched or not.
No, one of my best friends, the way she told me about it, and she and I, as we've gotten older, our tastes in anime are very much opposite. I think there's only a couple of anime that we both really enjoy, but typically, if one of us likes it, the other hates it.
Oh, so like us.
More like me and Doug,
Yeah, that's what I meant.
but yes. And she was obsessed with Danganronpa for a while. Um, and the way she talked about it, I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this. But I was surprised to learn that she watched all of Banished from the Heroes Party and absolutely loved it. I was surprised because I expected that to be something she wouldn't enjoy, and she was surprised I didn't finish it. Shame on me, I know.
Well, I'd say that you definitely need to go back and,
I need to go back and watch a lot of things, but with what time?
eh. Well, I would use the argument my friend had, but he is a truly special case.
Get ready to feel old. Forrest Gump is celebrating 30 years, and I was about to say I saw that in movie theaters, but no, that's not true. I don't think I did. But I do remember I have seen Forrest Gump, and that movie is a product of its time, and you there's no way you could make that movie today.
Hmm. Oh, I get commented on Forrest Gump a lot, or I can use Forrest Gump a lot in my business. And the reason being is what my dad started out with for us on our yard was the iconic mower scene in the opening scenes of Forrest Gump, the old handlebar snapper.
Yep. And John Knight says he watched it and said it was good. Uh, and yes, Ross, life is like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're gonna get.
Yep. So far, I've been no, I'm not going to comment on my life, but it's definitely been a roller coaster, especially in the past 5 years.
See,
Ever since I bought my house, life has been different.
yes, but you own a house. I
Well,
do not.
technically the bank owns it, but yes.
I rent a tiny living space.
Well, let's just put it this way. I think everyone has had an interesting life since 2020, both for better or for worse.
That I will agree with. I mean, I mean, my life. I could tell my life is basically eras at this point, and I think we have finally reached the post because I have a COVID era, and I think now we're reaching I think now would just be the travel era.
And I'm still in my working era.
Oh, I'm there. I'm there. Uh, but no, my fast food era ended quite some time ago, and that was followed by unemployed part one. Uh, the temp job era was rather entertaining, and I learned way too much.
Did you say temp or tech?
Temp, temporary. I
Uh,
basically I got let go from I got let go from one job and then basically did a year or so of temp jobs and then finally got a full-time job, stayed there for a few years, and then COVID burnout was so bad that I ended up leaving that job and so on and so forth.
well,
And Ross is in the what's missing era.
well, I have been in the work era ever since, well, pretty much ever since I decided college wasn't for me.
I have to ask, how long were you in college before you figured out it wasn't for you?
About a year.
Better than a lot of people, and better that as soon as you figured out it wasn't for you, you didn't bother to continue because a lot of people aren't uh, they finish even though they finish and then make themselves miserable and in some cases incur lots of debt for ultimately no good reason.
Yep. I know several people like that, and also I know one or two, well, one in particular, she changed her major 3 times.
I switched now I loved school. I swapped my major halfway through. It took me 5 years to finish my undergrad because I switched my major halfway through, but I finished with zero student loans.
About to say that I'm sure you are incredibly thankful that you managed to avoid that bullet altogether.
Um, I finished college with zero student loans at the expense of my sanity because that was the start of the fast food era.
Well, to be fair, at least you could afford paying off your student loans with that kind of money back then.
Uh, my parents made too much money for me to even apply for student loans.
So a lot of that was out of pocket.
It was entirely, er, first 5 semesters was a scholarship. Major made me miserable. When I gave up my scholarship, moved back home, and transferred, I lived at home, so I only had to pay for tuition at a state school. So working 30 hours a week while in school and probably 60 when I wasn't made it so I didn't need student loans.
Very fair, and
I
that's the same with me.
I also
Um,
went insane.
for me, I was working 40 hours a week, and I was taking like 4 or 5 classes at the time, and
Yep.
then I cut it down, and I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I wanted to switch my mate. I was gonna do a 2 year transfer into state for something, but then I'm like, you know what? Screw this. I'm gonna do a 2 year business degree. And after I learned that I would have to go back and redo da 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 class because of da 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 da, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm done.
And that is very fair. Um
And at that point, I just buckled up because the choice was go to college, don't pay rent, or go to work and pay rent. And after trying the whole college thing, I'd rather just pay rent to my parents. And the amount that I stockpiled by doing so basically allowed me to get the down payment on my house once the market started heading into what happened.
Yeah, no, and due to a series of unfortunate incidents, I was never in a position when the market was reasonable to buy a house.
Well,
And
to
now
be
I just live in one of the most expensive areas in the country.
uh, and to be fair, the one bad thing about the real estate market right now is everyone is hoping the Fed's going to lower rates. But the problem with that is if they cut rates, then the value of everybody's property is going to skyrocket even higher.
And it's pick your poison. Do you want it ultimately boils down to pick your poison, a slightly higher interest rate or a massively higher property tax.
Yep, because unfortunately, they're going to get their money one way or another.
They always do.
Hmm.
And subsequently, as we've just proven, life is like a box of chocolates.
Yep, you never know what life's going to hand to you.
All right. Question for everyone based on Elf Can't Diet Anime. The elf is addicted to French fries. So the question is from Ross, in your opinion, what do you think the best fry is?
Um, Honestly, my personal favorite French fry in the industry that I have had was from Checkers.
Interesting.
Arby's is a close second. I like their curly fries.
Ross
And
says, go ahead.
I'm about to say Ross says curly fries. I can agree. Um, a close. Now, when it comes to plain fries, unfortunately, I liked Hardee's, but they changed their fries to the crinkle cut ones with seasoning on them. While it is good during the initial first few, eventually the seasoning overpowers the rest of the fry and they're no longer good. Bur-
John Knight says McDonald's fries. I don't
Bur-
know if I agree with that.
Burger King had good fries at one point.
They did. I was gonna say they had really good fries at one point, and then they changed them, and they were garbage, like
Yep,
absolute worst. Uh, Wendy's currently are pretty good.
I can agree to that.
Um,
I'm trying to figure out what other fast food restaurants we have that share the type of fries they use.
Shake Shack is okay.
A lot of people would say Bojangles around here because our fries are one of the highest sought after, and it's largely due to our seasoning
But
for obvious
Bojangles
reasons.
doesn't exist up here.
Well, not yet. It's on its way. Believe me. Our
Um,
CEO wants to. They there's a video out that talks about that. Um, they want to. They've already signed a deal to put Bojangles in Vegas.
when is that opening?
No idea, but I think they've agreed on at least 10 Bojangles in the Vegas area.
Because if there is one on the strip, I will go check that out, and I will let you know what I think.
Well, it won't be the same because the menu options are going to be different to accommodate the different markets.
Uh,
So you're not gonna have the true Bojangles menu unless you come here. And no, Ross, I don't consider potato wedges fries. So KFC is out.
I will actually agree with that. And Colotons, Colotut,
I
are
have no,
okay.
I
I
have
don't
no
know. That's got
idea.
to be a local chain. I will say,
Um,
I will say, I know a lot of people up here who like Chick-fil-A's fries. I
I'll admit their waffle fries are pretty good.
I'm not a fan of waffle fries, so they're not terrible, but meh.
Um, the whatchamacallit. There was a local place around here that had really, really good fries because they were beer battered, but of course not in alcohol. And it was called Rudino's Pizza and Grinders. It was like an
Ooh.
Italianish place, and they were really good.
Pizza and sub shops have either the best fries or the worst fries with no middle ground. And Ross says, "Sorry, I meant Colton's."
Never heard of them.
Ditto. But no, there's a near the college I used to work at. There was two pizza and sub shops that delivered a lot to campus.
hmm
One of them had really, really good French fries.
There was when I was in middle school, we had a pizza shop that was within walking distance. Um, and that's where all the middle schoolers would go. It was between that and at the time, Starbucks had a rival called Java Divine, which was a local coffee shop. And those would be when they did the yearbook for our year. Those were the two places that we always went. It was either Java Divine or Homegrown Pizza, and we would take over both locations. And for Homegrown Pizza, they had bacon cheese fries. So they would basically take one of those metal plates that they serve like individual pans on. They would just load it up with fries. Then they would pile the cheese and the bacon on and
Oh
put it in the oven. And a plate of those was only like $3 back then.
God. Nope. Across the street from my high school was Family Pizza. So good. And then down the street was a Dunkin' Donuts.
Hmm.
Go figure.
Well,
It's Massachusetts.
I will say this. Until the traffic got bad, and it's gotten really bad in the past couple of years, compared to when I went to high school. But we actually had a lot of options when we left campus for lunch in high school because our high school was nice enough to let us. They are not as friendly as they used to be, but they still do let students go off campus. So to put in an example, within driving distance, we had multiple sheets. We had um, Chick-fil-A, Dunkin', Arby's, Bojangles, Taco Bell, KFC at the time, Wendy's, Subway, Little Caesars. Um, let's see, we had Quiznos back then. I can't remember if Firehouse Subs was there or not. Recently, after I got out of high school, they put a Hardee's in, right down the road. And what else did we have for the big fast? Oh, we have Burger King. Um,
See,
we have McDonald's. We have Cookout,
we weren't allowed to leave. I also grew up in a really small town.
and Ross. We recently got a Freddy's in the next town over within the past couple of years. Never had them.
Same.
Um,
You
let's
know,
see.
did you have you seen the Business Insider's US versus UK food comparisons?
Yes, I have. I've seen some of them. and the proportion, the portion sizes, the quote unquote ingredients that are used. Now I have to wonder if there are, when they try to compare the U.S. food to the other countries, are there laws in place to hide certain things off the menu label? Meanwhile, in the U.S., they are forced to reveal them.
That I don't know, but I just really like the banter between the American guy and the British guy, and they've done a lot of stuff together.
Yep. I
Um,
watched it back early on when they only had like 10 episodes out, but that was it.
uh, but what I almost want to do, because now all three of us live in different parts, technically different parts of the country, different parts
Hmm.
of the East Coast.
Yep.
I almost want to do a comparison from like different food chains and see if, like, even with McDonald's, if there's differences between the Northeast, the Middle, the Mid Atlantic, and the Southeast.
Well, to be fair, a lot of you transplants down here say that the Dunkin' around here suck in comparison to up north. So there's a huge difference there. Um, let's see. There's a couple other things that they complain about or they say is better here. Chick-fil-A is obviously better here. Bojangles is obviously better here. Um, Cookout is more North Carolina, of course.
I've never
But
heard of Cookout.
do you want to know something else that you don't really realize until you've been to different restaurants across the country,
What?
even though you're going to the same one? Different franchises have different menu items.
Yes,
And
that I've experienced.
because I will admit, I will not hesitate to go to a Bojangles if I am out of state because they have the items we don't have. The barbecue sandwiches, the roasted chicken bites, stuff like that that we don't have.
Raw, Ross, what we were talking about was it's on YouTube. I believe the channel is Business Insider. Uh, they they compare U.S. food to food in other countries, but the
And
one
they
to watch.
labeled it Food Wars,
Yes, they labeled it Food Wars. Uh,
which is somehow not a copyright infringement.
who knows? But really, the U.S. versus the U.K. are the ones to watch, just because, in my opinion, the two gentlemen have the best. It's they have the best chemistry. It's the most interesting. Like, they did other countries, but it wasn't that. It didn't grab me as much. But hey, I suppose this is proof I just like food.
Yep. Well, you've already agreed to a tasting type deal when once you come down here.
Oh yeah. If you could bring back one food franchise that is no longer around, what would it be?
No longer around or no longer in our area. Because Checkers still exists, no longer in our area. Quiznos, believe it or not, still exists, no longer in our area. Uh,
Um,
Ruby Tuesday, unfortunately, was in our area, not
Ruby
anymore.
Ruby Tuesdays is all but gone.
Um,
And the one that exists reasonably in my area, and that's a stretch, has gone so downhill it's shit.
I can agree to that. Um, During the TK, did you ever know a TK Trips, or was that more of a Southern thing?
That was a southern thing. I remember when Cracker Barrel moved north.
Oh, I watched a heresy video earlier. Some person was trying to say that Waffle House and Cracker Barrel were the same.
No!
But the only difference was Cracker Barrel had a gift shop.
I've been to Waffle House once.
Speaking of which, apparently Waffle House does not exist west of Texas.
Waffle House also doesn't exist north of, I think, DC. Like, I'm going to Virginia in 2 weeks for my sister's wedding, and one of the first things my husband said when we're booking all of our travel plans, he's like, he's insisting he's requiring we go to a Waffle House while we're down there because we can't up here.
Well, I can agree to that.
And
Their food is still somewhat reasonable because the tax is built into the price. So what you see on the menu is what you're actually paying minus the tip.
I'm not arguing. I wasn't going to argue with Waffle House. It's one of those, okay, whatever, I don't care.
And you go further south, you also have an off-brand competitor called Huddle House. Oh, and we have an IHOP around here. I forgot about that.
Ross, I said I've only been to a Waffle House once, maybe twice ever, and the answer is 0.
I've been to Waffle House multiple times and zero. And besides, you don't go to a Waffle House for the first shift or the second shift. You go for the third shift.
Um,
That's the true blue Waffle House crew.
but no. Dunkin' Donuts is significantly better up here.
Oh, and Krispy Kreme. We have Krispy Kreme too.
The closest Krispy Kreme to me is in another state. That's actually a story. So 2020, I was on my way to an event. I got picked up and we were on our way to an event that while we were in the car on the highway heading to Maryland, the event gets canceled because COVID, because March 2020. So since we haven't hit New York yet, we decide to go to the casino. We decide to go to the casino, which happens to have a Krispy Kreme. So we go, we get ourselves dinner. We spend like an hour gambling. We stop at Krispy Kreme so I can get donuts to bring home, and then we find out literally the next day the casino shut down for lockdown.
Oh, so y'all got to lose money the day before. Y'all were some of the last patrons that casino got.
I didn't lose money. I came home $25 richer.
Oh, nice.
Granted, I pulled $50 out of the ATM and walked out with 75.
Worth it.
Exactly. Worth it, and it's like one of my pandemics, one of my first pandemic stories.
There you go.
And then I come home and when I text husband to let him know that I will be home eventually that night instead of 2 days later, and he finds out that I'm at the casino, he's like, if you don't bring home Krispy Kreme, I'm gonna be mad. And I just laughed, and of course I did, because it's the little stupid things like that you do for your significant other.
And it's the ones that go the longest way.
Exactly.
And on that note, there's something else beside the Krispy Kreme that I keep forgetting is actually a worldwide chain.
And what is that?
Jimmy John's.
I don't like Jimmy John's.
I
That
don't mind. I don't mind them, but I did not realize that they were a worldwide chain until I was googling the commercials because they've always had some decent commercials. There are
Yeah.
there are Japanese commercials, Korean commercials for Jimmy John's, and they are actually quite funny.
Uh, that tracks. Japan television is hilarious. But no, I don't eat cold cuts, and Jimmy John's does not do hot subs up here.
Well, that's why we need to do Quiznos. But
That
unfortunately, they are no longer around here.
same. And John Knight says today is World Chocolate Day. Speaking of Krispy Kreme, says Ross, did you know they screwed the US over a promotion to the UK? That I did not. Uh,
For the TV show's Friend Anniversary.
but did you hear about the Dolly Parton collab with Krispy Kreme?
Yep. Um, I have a hookup on Krispy Kreme, courtesy of one of their drivers. Um, he stops by the store
Nice.
quite, and in exchange for buying his breakfast, he brings my crew breakfast. So there have been times I've gotten like 6 dozen donuts out of him in one sitting.
That is fantastic.
Considering the cost of donuts nowadays, yes. Um, but yes, he said he was complaining about the Dolly Parton ones. He's like, dude, they have done so. The fact that they did this and the fact we are sold out at the price they are listed at is ridiculous. Because they were
I,
not cheap.
no, I looked it up because if there was anywhere within like a reasonable I could get there, I would have done an adventure to go get them. But no, the nearest one was New York, and nope, not happening.
Yep. Well, and also you got to remember, Krispy Kreme is a North Carolina company that started in Raleigh. I have video from inside of the very first one, and that is where all the donuts that are in the Krispy Kreme stores we have come from because these are just pilot locations, and that is where the actual donuts come from. So they are shipped out on a truck from the one in Raleigh just about every day.
Um, and to continue on this food trend, John Knight points out tomorrow is not only National Video Game Day, but National Freeze Pop Day and National Ice Cream Sunday Day.
Too bad Ice Cream Sunday Day didn't fall on Sunday.
I know, right? Um, but hey, it's an excuse to go get ice cream.
Yeah, that was our employee appreciation for the week. It was a different theme every day of the week this week. And I ended up doing the ice cream, and we ended up doing Neapolitan for the crew. And since I was using my own money for this, I have never had Bluebell ice cream as much as I've heard it advertised. So I tried some of their cookie two step, and all in all, pretty good.
Changing the changing the subject. If changing the subject to something he thinks is funny, if you could be reincarnated into any comedy movie as the lead role, what movie would it be?
I don't watch movies, so no answer here.
I don't know. Comedies, I'm very, very picky about and haven't watched a comedy movie in a very long time.
Pretty much. Like I said, I am not a movie person.
Though,
I will be 100% with y'all. If it's not anime related, there is a very good chance I'm not watching it. DreamWorks is a maybe. Disney is a maybe. But other than that, any actual movies? Nope.
Like, see,
And plus, movies are not what they used to be.
100% agree there. I haven't watched a comedy in so long that the ones that are coming to mind are 90s movies or 90s early 2000s and without a female lead. So I don't know. I don't really have an answer to that.
So, I'm about to say the closest I got to watching movies that were not anime or animated related was in school when we had to get permission slip signed off on maybe on something we were reading in class. Let's see, Where the Red Fern Grows, Old Yeller, um, How to Kill a Mockingbird. Let's see, what else did we read in school that we had to get permission for? Uh, the movie Outbreak. We had to watch the clean version.
Outbreak
Um,
was Outbreak was a fantastic book. Um, the movie not nearly as good. Honestly,
well,
Ross, now that I think about it, honestly, honestly, I think I'm gonna roll with Chris Tucker in Rush Hour because I'd be more likely to run my mouth and get myself into trouble than. And Jackie Chan, just I don't think I could live up to that.
I think the last comedy movie I actually watched, and I'm dating myself, that wasn't actually animated was Grown Ups.
Adam Sandler's another one that is very hit or miss for me.
Adam Sandler and Jim Carrey. Who would you rather watch?
Over the years, I've watched more Jim Carrey.
Well, while we're on this topic, I saw something the other I saw something the other day from The Price is Right.
Okay.
Okay, so many years ago, Bob Barker did martial arts with what is it? Hold on, it's coming to me. Oh my gosh,
Is this
help
somehow
me!
cir- is this somehow circling back to Happy Gilmore?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It is. Trust me. Uh, okay, yeah.
I
So,
don't know how you're getting there, but
okay, it started off. Bob Barker did martial arts for 8 years with Chuck Norris.
that's pretty damn impressive.
Yes. So one day, him and Chuck had a match. He hurt his left rib, I believe it was. Then a couple days later, he had a match with Chuck Norris's brother. Hurt his other rib. Went to the doctor because the pain wasn't going away, and they're like, "You have two cracked ribs, one on each side." And he said he was talking to his mother about it, and she's like, "You need to quit hanging out with those Norris boys." And everyone in the comments was like, "No wonder Happy Gilmore didn't stand a chance."
Yep.
Because Bob survived rounds with Chuck Norris. And you know how the internet memes up and hypes up Chuck Norris to be damn near invincible. So
Well, yes.
it,
Um,
it, it made sense.
I mean, dating myself, I remember there was an animated video called "The Ultimate Showdown of the Ultimate Destiny," and the highlight was Chuck Norris coming out of the sky and beating everybody.
You know, one could almost argue who was more iconic, Bruce Lee or Chuck Norris?
I would argue that depends on where you're talking about. The argument could be made that Chuck Norris was more iconic here. But on
The
a
reason
global
I say that is because my dad, he was like, he loved martial arts films that involve Bruce Lee because he said Bruce Lee is one of a kind. There has never been another fighter quite like him, especially in cinematic roles.
agree, 100% agreed, and I would actually make the argument that in anywhere else in the world, Bruce Lee would be far more iconic.
Well, and there have been multiple homages to Bruce Lee in anime. Dragon Ball did it back in the 80s more than once.
Yep.
And they also did homages to Jackie Chan as well. I mean, hell, Master Roshi's disguise was Jackie Chun.
You know,
And yes, Rock, that was real. Bob talked about it on the show way back when.
gotta love it. Um, no, I love me some good martial arts movies. I I do love that stuff. Chuck Norris never actually got into the stuff he was in. Just never grabbed me. But, you know. And Ross says, yeah, well, Dodgeball, a true underdog story, had Chuck Norris referenced himself. Yeah, I don't know. So much like anything else, so much content.
You know, if one was to actually sit down and look at how much media has been produced in the past, well, since media's inception, or visual media's inception, like the television.
I mean, we could go back to the silent film era, which would be, I think, the 20s.
Yep. And at that point, you'd be getting into the, let's see, the Three Stooges, I believe, were part of that silent film era before they made their big break.
I mean,
And then Laurel and Hardy, no, they weren't part of the silent. I mean, they were a part of it, but they weren't.
and then you've got Walt Disney, the early stuff.
Yep. And, you know, Disney went back and forth for a while with Japan. Um, I forget the guy's I forget the guy's name, the godfather of anime. Um, they
Uh,
went back and forth for years.
and Ross in the chat, don't forget Charlie Chaplin.
True.
And also the Marx Brothers while we're on that.
Hmm.
Because I distinctly remember my mom loved I Love Lucy. And so that's a show I've seen a lot of. And there's an episode featuring Harpo Marx. and he doesn't speak the entire episode. It's the
You know,
whole that was also just hilarious to watch.
when you say doesn't speak for the entire episode, there is a fairly new show, animated, mind you, by Disney, where there is a character that doesn't speak, pretty much that rarely speaks throughout the episodes.
What show?
Phineas and Ferb. Ferb almost never talks.
Because Wally was one where there was almost no speech. Uh,
Yeah, up until we met the humans, there really wasn't any.
no, Ross. Bewitched was definitely later. Bewitched, I believe, was like the 50s, 60s.
Yep, yep.
And I ended up watching some of that in syndication on Nick at Night when I was young. I Love Lucy, Bewitched, I Dream of Jeannie.
For me, some of the shows that came on, Andy, of course. I mean, who has grown up in America and not seen at least one episode of Andy? I mean, come on.
Andy,
Mr. Ed, The Patty Duke Show. Let's see what else. What other black and white shows did I watch? Three Stooges, of course. Um, then, of course, you had the 70s and 80s. I've seen a little bit of MASH, Gilligan's Island, Knight Rider, The A Team. The Beverly Hillbillies.
and then Ross says The Munsters. Speaking
Yep.
of Nick at Night,
You know, there was a one of the Munsters actually visited our town about a year ago, and someone recognized him. And I can't remember if they were on one of the vehicle used in the show or what, but they were doing some filming for something to do with the new Munsters project, and part of the original cast was here. I think it was Eddie Munster was here.
I don't know, but yeah, no, we could. God,
We could go about this all night.
yes, yes, we could because even though we grew up in different eras, we
There's
grew
a
up
lot of shows that have survived the
the test of time and the syndication.
yep, and bridge the gaps.
Yep, and
And I will blame a lot of that on daytime TV having nothing better to air, or certain cable channels or subscription channels just like, screw it, we're gonna make a whole channel dedicated to this because we know people will watch it.
they're not wrong. Marketing at its finest. And on that lovely note,
It's time to say goodbye, at least for this week.
uh, and Ross is saying do the plug thing of what's coming up. If I knew, I would. Uh, what's coming
Um,
up is more anime discussions, more of us giving each other a hard time for what we have and haven't been watching.
Maybe a first week into summer season review next week once more shows have actually come out and when we have Doug on to poke fun at.
Um, in the meantime, everybody, if there's any of you guys in the path of the hurricane, please be safe. In the meantime, stay happy, stay healthy, watch the new season of anime, and
Or watch the old ones. We don't judge.
watch anime, stay happy, stay healthy. Even please be careful if you're in the path of the hurricane. Stay cool, and we'll see you all next week. Good night,
Good
everybody.
good night.